Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by The Wealth Club. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have Natasha Feghali here with me today, and she's joining us from Windsor, Ontario. She has more than 15 years experience in education, entrepreneurship, and media, and of course, real estate investing. She's a two-time graduate from the University of Windsor and a Stanford University Fellow in Democratic Policy and Rule of Law. She speaks not only 1, 2, 3, but 4 languages, so English, French, Croatian, and Arabic. And with her diverse skills and recognition of prestigious awards such as the Governor General's Award, making a commitment for global impact, she's an ideal and dynamic candidate, offering a very unique perspective on, as a woman of Lebanese origins, and also a very multifaceted professional. So thank you so much for joining us today, Natasha. How are you?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm fine, thanks. I appreciate it. When it asks for the bio, I put like a standard bio, but when I hear it, then I think I should have just put really likes going shopping, enjoys working out, because it's
Yeah,
like,
but it wouldn't do you justice.
People say it, and then it's like, you start to feel like, you feel shy, you feel like an imposter. You feel like that person is someone, but I'm this person.
Yeah. No, I hear that, but you don't want to sell yourself short. So obviously you have done a lot and you do have this diverse background. So maybe you can take us back to the beginning where it all started and how you segued over into real estate investing.
Well, actually, Serena, I was born in real estate because my grandparents, when they came to Canada, it's all they really could do. So they started buying properties, and they were the OG Burrs, back in the 1950s and 60s. And so this was passed down to my mom. And then on my father's side as well, they also had real estate abroad. Yeah. And then, my dad got involved in it as well in Windsor, Ontario. So I was born into this. And I didn't come by it, say, haphazardly, maybe like some people, or because I want to get rich quick, or it's a fix. I have been involved in rental properties and rental disputes and being a landlord from a very small age.
Yeah.
So I took an active role on my own in 2014 after I was on a movie set doing makeup. And it's interesting because there was a gentleman there, and this is his full-time gig, and he has a very large portfolio. And he literally said to me, if you don't figure out another way to make money, you're going to bankrupt in life.
Oh, gosh.
And he schooled me in it more than I'd ever been schooled before.
Yeah.
And I went with my mom. My mother was my first lender, by the way.
Yeah.
And she told me when we got to the bank, she was like, every single penny right now that I'm lending you, you're going to pay me back. And not because I need it, but because you're going to learn that when you borrow to start a business, you have to pay those things back, and you have to learn to run that business of yours.
Yeah.
And I paid my mother every cent back, and I've just continued to use different strategies, old methods, and continue to grow my portfolio.
So can you talk about what your portfolio looks like today and really what you're focused on?
Sure. So we have doors across Canada. We have a federal corporation. We operate out of 3 provinces. Right. So New Brunswick, Calgary, and Ontario. We're mainly based in Windsor, Ontario, and Calgary, Alberta, and then Moncton, New Brunswick. And we also have storage units that are on the property. So I've converted my garages into storage units for small businesses to store them. We don't do what we would call white storage. So that's anything cold. Yeah. It's basically just things of theirs that, they might need to put somewhere, decorations, tables, whatever.
Yeah.
And I manage properties as well. We also invest in REITs, and I say we because I have an angel investor that I work with.
Yeah.
He is not as risk averse as I am, so I am more in the REIT portion
Yeah.
than I would say he is. This is the angel investor. And I say that because I have my own homes, like my own small portfolio, and
Yeah.
then we have like a medium-sized portfolio together.
Yeah.
And so going forward, we're looking at investing abroad just to open up the doors of our portfolio and of our
Yeah.
business, and to kind of transition internationally, either in the US
Yeah.
or in the UAE.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I mean, there's definitely a lot of investors that I've spoken to, and obviously the property values can be much lower. So even though you have the exchange, you're still buying things at a far lower price. And then there's also different tax advantages in the States you won't see
Yeah,
here. So I think a lot of people are gravitating to various places. Like I've spoken to someone about midterm rentals and, the Midwest part of the States, like, really favorable cap rates in different parts of Texas and Florida and places that are more landlord friendly and stuff
yeah.
like that. So I think it is natural that as you expand, you start to explore those other opportunities. Now, when you look at your portfolio being Ontario, Calgary, and Moncton, would you say there's any market out of those you like the most? And if so, why?
All three have their strong points. What I've noticed though is that in Moncton, New Brunswick, actually, I'm in an investors group, as we had spoken earlier. And there was a gentleman there talking about Moncton, New Brunswick, and I had contacted him. And through that, I learned more about it.
Yeah,
Although they have a double property taxation, so
yeah,
property tax is double taxed,
yeah,
you can, the amount, there is no cap on rent raises.
yeah,
This is and has been amazing because we can renovate our properties immediately. We can do what is needed. You're able to show the tenant while they're in the property,
yeah,
listen, we're doing this to make your life better, and everyone's on board. And
yeah.
if they're not on board, you can file for eviction immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing. Like, I'm not going to say that, we shouldn't take care of our communities and vulnerable populations and stuff like that. I'm just surprised when you look at situations in Ontario where the property owner has far less rights than any tenants do. Because I think with reasonable notice, like even if it's 6 months or 12 months, like I think if you own a property,
Yes.
ultimately you should be able to do what you want with it at some point in time. Like it shouldn't just be some like moving target where someone stops paying rent and it takes 2 years to kick them out, right? Or there's very specific
Right.
grounds for it. So I don't know. That's obviously like my perspective on it. I think there's got to be, certain regulations in place, but I think it needs to be a little bit more balanced because I feel like a lot of places just skew really far in one direction or the other. Now, when you look back at everything, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced as you've scaled?
Um, I want to
In the
answer this. I
beginning.
really want to answer this truthfully, so I'm going to be really diplomatic. The laws that are in place in Ontario are negatively affecting the right people and positively affecting and helping the wrong individuals, which in turn is making a very serious impact that will affect all tenants, possibly negatively.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate because housing is a business, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
It's a business. And there is no other industry that you can go and just take whatever you want and leave. And it's interesting because I talked about this on my Instagram, that why don't I go to my hairdresser and tell her every 4 weeks, you're going to do my hair and I'm not paying for it.
Yeah.
And when we have
Where did
that
that ever
type
be
of
possible?
Exactly. And when we have that type of attitude and the attitude of the landlord and tenant board, the attitude of the some tenants, because I don't want to say that they're all that way.
Yeah.
I personally have beautiful tenants. However, that type of ignorance is affecting the right people, and that is the right tenants who want to be housed
Yeah.
and are excellent tenants.
Yeah. Now, what would you say are some of the things that you've done to quality control the people that you are renting to? Because it sounds like you've obviously had good success. So are there any specific steps that you follow to make sure that you're, avoiding maybe the professionals out there?
So I have a very interesting vetting process. I also have a beautiful property manager. So that's two sets of eyes. Plus, it also goes to the angel investor. That's a third set of eyes.
Yeah.
We will often have 2 or 3 meetings with the person or
Yeah.
people that want to rent. And we do require a few documents from them
Yeah.
to ensure that they also meet, it's not about me, it's not about my standard. I'm an investor.
Yeah.
But because you're co-housing with others, I also need my other tenants to meet you
Yeah.
so that they can live with you. Because I have people who have lived with me now, not in my home, but I say with me because I treat them like human beings. They have been in our homes for 10 years.
Yeah.
I can't disrupt that flow. So if you have a pet, your pet's got to come to the property. And I'm sorry if that's not okay for you, then we're not for you,
Yeah.
because I believe in the people that have lived in our homes, and they call me at 1 o'clock in the morning when things go wrong. They've had children, they're raising children in our homes. So I just can't bring anybody in there, and for better or for worse. And as you know, in this business, I have a really thick skin, and if people are not okay with that, well, unfortunately, you cannot live in our homes,
Yeah.
because I have to honor the people that do live there, because they've put in blood, sweat, and tears with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. No,
So
I mean, I think that makes sense. It's just like running a business. Like if you have employees and you bring in, someone that doesn't mesh with the rest of the group or creates a toxic environment or something like that, it's going to disrupt everything. So I completely understand. What would you say are some of the biggest
absolutely.
obstacles that real estate investors are facing right now, or something that you've faced more recently?
Where do we start? Oh, where do we start? Okay, let's go with the obvious one, which is mortgage rates.
Yeah.
That's pretty obvious. Changes in the LTV. Some are great, some are not so great.
Yeah.
In Windsor, Ontario, we now have a licensing act. I mean, listen, hey, it's fine. I'm for it, whatever. But when it's costing 500 a year per property, it shouldn't,
Yeah.
no, it should be 500 per landlord.
Yeah.
And all houses should have to qualify before you
Yeah.
can get it. This is all going to fall on the tenants.
Well, they got to
Unfortunately,
pass through the costs. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Those rent raises will go up. And so unfortunately, I just feel like all of this is going to affect tenants
Yeah.
in the long run. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Now, in terms of things that you're most proud of, what would you say is one of your biggest successes?
I would say that my biggest success, truthfully, although it was a really hard time for a lot of people, and I acknowledge that, I worked really hard during COVID to keep my properties afloat and to keep people housed when they didn't have a job, when they didn't have work.
Yeah.
And we literally were on the tightrope for 2 years straight. And because we worked with others, they worked with us.
Yeah.
And when things went back to the new normal, people paid us back. And that type of trust in others, I just thinking about it, it takes your breath away because
Yeah.
we could have lost everything. And we had to work with our tenants and they had
Yeah.
to work with us because they
Yeah.
knew that they were going to be, there's a lot at stake for everybody. And
Yeah.
I just see that there's no award that can supersede that. And the fact that I could keep these people housed
Yeah.
and we were like, on the tightrope every month.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. I'm really, really grateful for that.
Yeah. No, I love that story. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Welcome to the Wealth Club, an exclusive community dedicated to elevating your journey towards financial freedom, well-being, and success. The journey to 1% starts here. Join like-minded leaders and commit to growth for the mind, body, bankroll, and soul. Learn all the proven techniques to change your life forever with direct access to a massive team of more than 10 tried and true experts. Moreover, members enjoy priority access to investment opportunities, job openings, and partnerships within the community. For just $1 a day, members gain entry to specialized forums covering a wide spectrum of fields, discover diverse income streams, new opportunities, collaborations, and employment. Partake in weekly Zoom calls with our team and join monthly live Q&A sessions. Compete and win cash prizes. Active members top the leaderboard for monthly rewards. Ready to get started? Join today to unlock your true potential. To sign up, go to scroll.com/The Wealth Club. Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. Have you always wanted to invest in real estate to build long-term wealth? Start today with just $10,000. Introducing HoneyTree Real Estate Investment Trust. Welcome to the Temple Building, a mixed-use 0.48-acre site with 25 residential tenants and 5 retail spaces. In the heart of Brantford, Ontario, this property was purchased for $5.8 million and was recently appraised for $6.470 million and an instant investor upside of $670,000. HoneyTree is taking on a light value-add strategy, adding AC, laundry, and Energy Star efficient appliances. Coming soon to HoneyTree Real Estate Investment Trust. For more information, go to honeytreegrow.ca. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspired to Invest. I have Natasha Feghali here with us today from Windsor, Ontario, and she's talking about her background in real estate and how she scaled her portfolio across 3 provinces. So she's in Alberta, Ontario, and New Brunswick. So I guess one thing I want to know, I know you were talking about, going through COVID and, oh, I think you just froze there for a minute. Okay, you just totally froze, so I'll start that sentence over again.
Okay.
Because you're not going to like it based on how it froze. So before the break, we were talking about Natasha's experience owning properties in 3 provinces across the country. So we have Alberta, Ontario, and New Brunswick. And before the break, we were talking about your experience throughout the pandemic. So with that situation aside, I know that was crazy, but what would you say is one of the craziest things that you've experienced so far as a real estate investor?
Oh, this is my favorite story. My tenant my very, very special tenant that I had, who, you know what's so funny though, Serena, is in the end, on the last day when she was being evicted, she actually cleaned the whole house for me.
Oh, that's a
Yeah, she
shocker.
actually cleaned even the floors. And she left the house after she trashed the whole thing. She left the house in pristine condition on the last
Wow.
day. And she was like, thank you for not being worse.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, give
Wow.
me the keys. You're out. You know,
Yeah.
that was an experience I've never incorporated that in I've never in my life gone through something like that.
Yeah.
Ever.
And
Even
why did
with
you
my
evict her?
parents, properties. Well, she was up to some really interesting activities and doing a lot of interesting things that are illegal in Canada. And yeah, so and behavior. And think of like the most interesting and absurd things that you could think of, and that's what was happening in the property.
Yeah.
And it kept escalating and escalating and escalating. But you know what happens, what I noticed, and I don't know if you've gone through this too, Serena, is that, after about the 4th or 5th month of this back and forth, it
Yeah.
kind of becomes like routine. Like every fourth day, I'm at the door, I'm checking your house. Because you want to annoy them so that maybe
Yeah.
they'll leave or maybe they'll do a cash for keys.
Yeah.
And she would just open the door and I would like walk through and there'd be all these people there and I'd be like, I'm writing you up again, and it sort of started to become like a habit actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and so, or we'd have to call bylaw. So we'd all go there or call the police. We'd all go
Yeah.
there. It
Yeah.
just started, because during this time it was also COVID. So the eviction process was kind of at a standstill.
Yeah.
Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't have lasted this long. But due to COVID, it took a lot longer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd never experienced this even with my parents' rentals, something at this velocity of absurd.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
on the last day, she literally cleaned the house because she is a professional tenant, by the way. She cleaned the house and she was like, thanks for not being worse. Which leads me to believe that I think other landlords are, you know what, they just have it up to here and they're like, that's it. I'm taking the front door off,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. So I know you said that you grew up in real
Yeah.
estate and you come from a line of different real estate entrepreneurs and investors. So when it comes to things like mentorship and coaching and education, can you talk a little bit about how you've, learned some of these additional things and maybe what communities you're part of? And as a segue to that, what would you say is some of the best real estate advice you've ever been given?
So I'll break it down into three parts. When it comes to mentorship, I seek help from people who know what they're doing only. And I will also ask around me, other investors in my circle of influence who know what they're doing. Because if people are not doing or are in the business that we're in,
Yeah.
they don't understand the parameters of the LTB. So their advice is great, but I have to operate within these parameters.
Yeah.
I mentor new investors because I also run property management. So I get a lot of new investors and I have to also massage their thinking to go along the lines of the LTB and what
Yeah.
we can and can't do.
Yeah.
I have property managers on all my properties.
Yeah.
So I also ask them, it's a spider web for all of us. It's a spider web and we
Yeah.
have to be humble and your ego has no place in this business.
Yeah.
The next part is I'm part of a lot of networks in Ontario, as well as the other provinces that I invest in,
Yeah.
such as REIT networks, women in investing. I have a Facebook page for women in investing in Windsor. It's a small thing, but sometimes we share news articles, different ideas here and there.
Yeah.
And then I'm also part of other investor networks, and I follow other investors like yourself who I know what they're doing, and I take pieces of advice from everywhere, put it together like a puzzle.
Yeah.
The last part is that, and I've made this mistake, and I was getting high on the hog, like we talked about earlier, is I sometimes like to dip into my own funds for things, although they're for the properties, they don't need to get done. But I just want it to look nice.
Yeah.
And the positive is that the tenants that I have are happy and they're living healthy, and the houses are very well maintained.
Yeah.
The bad side is that you don't need to paint the porch every year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's where me and the angel investor, we go head to head because he's like a true investor. Whereas I feel like, well, it's got to look good. It's got to have curb appeal, you know? So that's kind of
Yeah, no, I think that's huge because I think a lot of landlords get a bad rap and, they probably let things go far past the point of needing repair. But I think it's also just making sure you're taking care of things so it doesn't back up on you that way. But to your point about having tenants that have been with you for 10 years, they see this, like they don't want to leave because they know that you're taking care of things, right? So I think that is reciprocal and it makes sense why you have those long-standing relationships, right? Now, when you think about real estate in the sense of how it's changed your life, can you speak to that a little bit and talk about what financial freedom means to you?
So real estate has changed my life because I'm always on call. I am sure, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. We're always on call. We're responsible for people's living situation. It's not like, you go to a job, you get your check, you go home, everybody goes home, it's fine. No, people live in our homes.
Yeah.
So we're responsible for everything. So that type of responsibility, I know is not for everyone because it's very overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
And then there's the really positive moments when people bring home a new baby, to one of your units and they call you and they tell you, we've got a baby here now, So there's those beautiful moments as well.
Yeah.
It is definitely not a business for the faint of heart. And that's how it's changed my life because when it was my parents and stuff, like, I don't care. I just go there.
Oops, you just froze for a little bit. Still frozen.
10, 11 years
just,
ago.
You just froze for the last little bit.
Oh.
So maybe if you want to start back from, you said when it was your parent stuff, and then that whole last little bit, maybe like 20 seconds was cut off.
Yes. When it was my parents, I remember being a kid, I would just go sweep the floor, stuff like that.
Yeah.
My dad would be doing stuff, or my dad would have to go to the properties, whatever. But now that it's me, 10, 11 years ago, I was a lot more bubbly and mushy and happy-go-lucky. I feel like now I can go from really smiley to grizzly in seconds. And so I think that has really shaped my personality and changed my life, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are running a business, right? So I think there's a time and place for both sides in that respect. Would you say that you've reached your financial freedom goal already, or is that something you're still working towards?
Serena, if you would have asked me this in 2019, I would have said, yeah, a couple more houses and we're good to go. Now I'm hoping for sunshine. better days ahead, and that will affect all Canadians actually, who are homeowners. But I think that there's still a lot of work to be done, and still a lot of hustle in me, and I'm exploring new markets.
Yeah.
So I would say no. No, I haven't. And I think I have a lot of growing to do as an investor, because as you just said, Serena, we're business owners, and I often forget that.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of,
a lot of investors have. Like I had actually my episode that's going on at the moment. I'd asked this particular guest of mine, because she's also a real estate coach, where she sees the problem with where real estate investors fails. And it's because they lack the ability to treat it like a business. So they don't put the systems in place soon enough and get the support they need when they're growing their team, so that they get to this size. The next thing you know, things are falling apart because they didn't put the proper foundation and things in place, right? So it's interesting just to talk about it in that respect. And I think the reality is, like, we had this kind of, the world kind of had a pause, not to say you did during COVID, but then everything kind of went crazy, like gas prices were the lowest they'd been in ages. Now they're probably back up at the highest that they've been, but then that affects everything, right? So we had this little lull, and then everything kind of went into overdrive. So I think it's going to be that much harder for people to get ahead, but I think that also makes investing that much more important, right? And I think we just all need to keep that in mind with the decisions that we're making and how we choose to spend our money. Now, I know you did talk about looking at other markets. So can you talk about what's next for you and what you're most attracted to in terms of maybe your next steps with an acquisition or a market or an asset class?
So what I think is next for me, I really want to explore the international market. That's where I believe that I'm headed, because in some areas, they have made it a lot easier for investors to enter and to scale. There are pros and cons. There's no paradise anywhere.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons everywhere. However, markets that are new to me, once you see that you can scale there and that people have been there for a few years, and there aren't these giant, catastrophes happening, I think it's time to investigate those markets.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Just talking about like environment and catastrophes. As I understand it, a lot of the insurance costs, like in Florida, have gone really up because of the hurricanes and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So I think as we are considering different markets, I think looking at the possible consequences of climate change in the coming years is going to have a really big impact, not only on investors, but obviously just people living in those areas and homeowners and stuff like that, right? So I think you have to be really strategic and look at all of those different things before you make those investments. In terms of favorite quotes, obviously the name of the podcast is Inspired to Invest. So I always like to ask my guests, what is a favorite quote of theirs?
I don't know who said it, but my mother always says this: pennies make dollars and dollars make millions.
Yeah, I love that.
And who said that? I don't know, but I got that from my mother.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wise woman. So anyone who wants to get in touch to learn a little bit more about you and possibly explore opportunities, what's the best way for them to reach you?
They can reach me on my social media platforms, and I have the same handle for all of them, and it's at NE Feghali.
Great. So we'll include that in the show notes below. Of course, thank you for your time, for being here today. And for anyone that is tuning in, thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you subscribe below and that you have followed along on social at Inspired to Invest Podcast. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to the Wealth Club for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.